behind us a little bit. We're not that critical. It's also carried out only in the amplitude modulation mode. Everybody is welcome to participate, and while we do hope that you are into vintage gear and restoring it and running it, we will allow, if you want to call it that way, anybody that can generate an AM signal is welcome to join us. It's a great place to look for stuff and sell gear or look for bits and pieces of information you might need. And I think it's been meeting for 26 years now. And started on one different frequency and slowly migrated down this way where it's free and clear. So let's see. For those wishing to participate in today's net, which is a round table style of net, so I will take check-ins and we will get everybody seated and go from there. So if you'd like to participate, please give W4MEC a call and come now.
Good morning, Charlie. WA4LLR.
N4LQ.
WB4ARK.
K3OS.
WB4NKL.
K4 VWD.
W4VRO.
Okay. So far we got Dave, WA4LLR, Steve, N4LQ, Buddy, WB4ARK, Gary, K3OS, Cliff, WB4NKL, and Lee, K4VWD, and Ray, W4VRO. Any further check-ins for round one? Come down. Short net group today, but not as short as it has been. One more time, I know I don't need to do this for you fellows, but I'm addicted. LLR, LQ, ARK, OS, NKL, VWD, and VRO. Alrighty, fellas, good morning. Nice sunny day here. I can tell. I'm looking through the windows here. I don't see any blue. You see any gray out there, and the sun is beating down, so not sure of the temperature yet, and I'll let you know, not that important, but I'm sure it's within a degree or two of everybody else. So, let's get started here with Dave. WA4LLR in the group, W4MEC.
W4MEC and the group, WA4LLR. Good morning, Charlie, and everybody on the net. We've got 38 degrees, bright sunshine up here in eastern Yancey County. And the leaves are still beautiful at 3,000 feet. And just a lovely fall day. Looks like the rest of the week is going to be nice and warm. So maybe this is Indian summer or whatever. Anyway, everybody's sounding great. I'm on the ART-13 and the HRO-50T1. So, Steve, I know things are always pleasant in Shelby, so how are we doing today? N4LQ, WA4LLR.
WA4LLR, N4LQ. Yeah, things are pleasant and just keep getting pleasanter. Running a new rig or transmitter. This is a homebrew thing that I've cobbled together out of some parts, and it's only running about 51 watts, so, and soon to be upgraded to full power, hopefully. I just hope it sounds okay. And it is solid state, using a DTS VFO, and the VFO output is modulated with one transistor, then to a little buffer amplifier, and then into the AL1200. So, over to you there, buddy. WB4ARK, N4LQ.
N4LQ, WB4ARK. Okay, Gary. Steve.
Gary's next. Well, beautiful day. About like it was yesterday to start off with. We had plenty of sun, and I guess it looks like it's going to be another day like yesterday. It's going to be, I believe, a very, very, I'm trying to look at my frequency, a very nice day, probably going to warm up. It's 39 degrees, was a few minutes ago, and the humidity was about 83%. And I have a question for Dave regarding propane. Dave, we've switched 2 of our engines over to propane, and we've got 30 burners in this one engine, and Duncan was noticing that the regulator, which is like an acetylene regulator, it's a gas type regulator, goes up to 15 psi, and so he was noticing that during the day yesterday, when the temperature was up close to 80 degrees, that the regulator at one point began to, I wouldn't say freeze up, but develop some moisture and ice on it. So later on in the afternoon, about 6 o'clock, as the temperature had cooled down and the humidity had dropped off, he noticed that it had stabilized, and he wasn't having to fiddle with the regulator to keep it at 10 psi. So our question is, does the humidity have anything to do with that? Is that what is causing that to occur? So I guess you can make a comment about that on the next go-round. So with that, we'll turn it over to Gary, K3OS. This is WB4ARK.
WB4ARK, K3OS. Hey, buddy, good morning. From beautiful Hickory, I guess. Beautiful day here. A little chilly this morning, but I think as everybody's going to see, it's going to get warmer here. I'm on the the usual Gonset twins this morning, which I'm really liking. Sound really good. Steve, the radio sounds fine. Hard to tell it from anything else that you've run. Real clear. Seems to have plenty of modulation. So, congrats on that. It's an interesting approach. Yeah, it would put a good use to my signal generator here, which for the most part sits around, right? And anyway, I do have a question for the group. I've got I'm trying to, for whatever reason, the transmitter on the Kenwood twins stopped. I've lost modulation on AM. Works on sideband, but I've lost the AM stuff, and I don't know why. So I've got it open, and I've narrowed it down to basically one little circuit with one transistor in it. That radio's a bear to work in, but that's a whole nother story. I pulled the transistor and threw it in my little checker, and the transistor looks okay. I was going to swap it out, but I'm wondering, in the experience of everybody here, just because it checks okay, is it possible that it fails in circuit? And that is my question. Cliff, over to you. WB4NKL, K3OS.
K3OS, WB4NKL. Okay, Gary. Sounding good on the twins. It's Up to 43. It started out 36 here this morning. It's up to 43, going to 73 according to the forecast. Beautiful weather. Full sun, and it's going to be that way the rest of the week, looks like. Cool mornings and up in the 70s. Running the DX100B again here today, about 105 watts of output carrier. And Gary, usually transistor, they're either good or bad. I rarely ever run into one that checks good that won't work in circuit. So you might need to look at the voltages around. I'm not familiar with that Kenwood. The Yaesu 101, they've got a little separate AM modulator circuit that they go through. When you say it don't work, are you not getting any carrier, or just not getting modulation on the carrier? Or I would look at if there's any electrolytic coupling capacitors. I'd look at those real close, because the radios are getting age on them where they're drying out. So I'd look at something like that if you're losing the modulation. Ray, you're sounding good this morning. Band's in good shape. I'll send it on around. Go ahead, Lee. K4 VWD. It's WB4NKL.
Thank you, Cliff. This K4 KL. This is K4 VWD. Well, it's very dry here in Greenville. Temperature is 49. Just popped up to 50. The sun's shining bright. And Steve, that put together hodgepodge that you got there sounds great. It really does. You did a great job putting that together. So I'll keep it going. And here she comes, Ray. W4VRO. This is K4VWD.
K4VWD and the net, W4VRO. Thank you, Lee, and good morning. Good morning to the net. And everyone's sounding good this morning. Conditions are good. Charlie, you're booming in as usual. Dave, A13 sound great. And Steve, your 51 watts sounds good and putting a good strong signal down this way. Buddy, as always, strong, good signal. Gary, your guns at gear is sounding good. And your Q5, often I have a little problem copying you, but you're right at the noise level. Noise level is S1 or S2, but once in a while you kick the S meter up a tiny bit. But the important thing is your Q5. Cliff, DX100B sounds great. And Lee, as always, you're sounding good. I don't know what you're using this morning, probably your number one transmitter. 44 degrees here this morning. And we're using a lot of vacuum tubes this morning. I think we probably have about 20 or 22 vacuum tubes in the lineup this morning with the Johnson 500 and an inverted V antenna running about 350 watts carrier. So maybe we have some more check-ins by now to add to the list. Back to you, Charlie. W4MEC. This is W4VRO.
We're good, Ray. W4VRO in the group. W4MEC. Okay, let me stand by. Do we have any check-ins that would like to join us? Come now.
KZ4 Bravo.
Got you, John. Anybody else? Okay, John, you'll be our tail end Charlie after Ray, and then turn it back to me. Go ahead and make a transmission here, and then send it back. KZ4B, W4MEC.
Okay, W4MEC in the group. This is KZ4 Bravo. Well, for the last couple of check-ins, I thought that I was on my 160 meter G5RV antenna that's fed with ladder line through my AT5K antenna tuner, and I wasn't. I was on my 80-meter resonant antenna, and I thought that the antenna tuner metering was messed up because it wasn't indicating anything. It turned out I was on the 80-meter antenna. I've got a rather complicated antenna switching setup here where I don't have to connect and disconnect coax. I do switches, and I had it switched wrong. So long story short, the metering on the AT5K is working okay, so I don't have to go in and fix it. That's the good news. And so I would appreciate signal reports if how well I'm doing on this G5RV resonant on 160 meters. It's about 200 feet end to end. And of course the rest of the rig is the usual Titan 1 by Tentec and the Eagle transmitter. So with that note, I will send it back. W4MEC in the group, KZ4B over.
Very good, John. KZ4B in the group, W4MEC. Well, you're booming in here. I didn't look at the SWR, but when you key the transmitter and all the noise goes to zero, you're strong. So let me see. Any more check-ins that would like to join us, come now. I didn't hear anything. I wonder where George is. I vaguely remember him saying something about a trip, but now I'm not sure. So good first round, fellas, and I did look at the temperature, and I have 3 of them to choose from, so I averaged them together. I think it was 40 degrees. I got one on my heat pump that said 43. I got one on a weather station that said 36, I think. Yeah, 36. And a real one that has fluid in it, and it said 38, so I took the average. So anywhere there, so man, I do better with one of those little discs with an arrow on it that you spin, and wherever it comes up, that's what the temperature is. So, buddy, I'm interested in the answer to that question too. I'm curious about what burners you ended up adapting. If you went after those bungee burners, or did you find something else, or did you design your own, which I would expect you probably did, but I was just curious. I never heard anything back about the bungee burners. And what else we got here? I have not completed my roller project. I actually had a bad caster, and I put all swivel casters on there, and I had a caster that would not swivel. It wouldn't go all the way around. I don't know what happened to it. There's something about the in the casting, not casting, the stamping in the plate there. Something's messing it up. But so I'm putting 5 on it, 1 on each leg, and then a support in the center, so to keep things from sagging, and ran into that issue. Plus, I got to go. I got my distributor in for the truck, and I have not put it in yet, and I still got to rebuild the carburetor and get that going. That'll only take a half a day maybe, and fire it up. Plus, now I have to polyurethane my grandson's floor once my son gets it stained, because he's going to Oklahoma for a couple weeks. So he's been trying to get him in that room for months now. So with all the reconstruction he's had to do on it, has had rot holes in the walls, rotted windows, and all that stuff that make an old house like this that was neglected, a project to bring back to life. So not to mention the bathroom he has to work on. So coming along. Let's get going around again, and with WA4LLR in the group, W4MEC.
Alrighty, W4MEC and the group, WA4LLR. Well, Charlie, sounds like you're doing a truck rebuild almost. Good luck with that and the polyurethane. Steve, the homebrew solid state sounds as good as your other rig, so you're doing a good job. Gary, the Gonzits sound great, and of course the DX100 does too, Cliff. 49 degrees down where you are, Lee. Ray, good copy, and John, you're 30, plus 30 up here on the S-meter. So the antenna's doing a good job for you. Now, buddy, frost on the regulator. Well, there's 2 or 3 things that can produce that. One is a little bit of moisture in the system, for which you need a shot of ethanol in the tank. But I'm tending to think that's not the problem. What you need to know is your total BTU draw. You need to know the model number of the regulator, and you need to look up the BTU that that particular regulator can deliver. Most of the time, regulator freeze up is due to more demand than the system wants to supply, because of the Bernoulli effect and so on and so forth. But what you need to know is your total BTU draw. You need to know what that regulator is capable of, and you'll have to just look that up based on what model it is. The other thing you need to know is the pipe size going from the regulator to the burner and the length of the run, because a certain diameter pipe at a certain length can only deliver a certain number of BTUs. So everything is in play. It's possible that it's a simple thing like, oops, there's just some moisture in the tank, which under a heavy load causes a freeze up. But I tend to think more that you're wanting more than the system really wants to supply when the temperature is at a certain point. The ambient temperature is, of course, it determines tank pressure. It determines a lot of things, and usually, you're going to see that frost go away as the temperature warms up, as a rule. But the thing you need to know is the total BTU draw of what all your burners are producing or demanding, the capability of that particular regulator. I know we used to service a lot of glass blowers in the company I worked 4 years back, and they had to have specific regulators that were designed for a tremendous BTU draw. And some of them wanted, they would run their units up much higher than, household appliances is half PSI. Some systems use 2 pounds, and of course some use 10, but they would run theirs up, oh my goodness, 50 pounds or more. But it's a combination of all the above. You need to, like I said, you need to know the total BTU draw. You need to know line length from regulator to burner, line diameter, and gas line is sized by internal diameter, not external. And you need to know the capability of the model regulator that you've got, and all that put together will tell you the capability of the system. So you may either have to change regulators, you may have to upsize the line, and I'm wondering what size tank you're running, because tank size also will determine what it can deliver. I know that's more than anybody wanted to know, but anyhow, I'll send it on around. N4LQ, WA4LLR.
Okay, I agree with all that. WA4LLR. Hello. I don't seem to be working. There we go. WA4LLR, N4LQ. I had a loose connection. Anyway, I said I agree with all that, Dave, and sorry for the issue here. You wouldn't believe the mess on this table here. I've got this piece of board with some of the components screwed down. I got a fan leaning on it, and solder everywhere. Anyway, I'm working on a bigger amplifier here to boost this thing up a little bit. I appreciate the reports on the audio. I'm using a D104 amplified, and it goes straight into the modulator transistor, which is just a little bitty transistor. So this is the lowest of low-level modulations that you can have, I guess, since it's modulating the DDS VFO. Anyhow, I'm not going to hold it up too long here. I'm going to turn it over to Buddy, who is now his brain is bursting with knowledge of gas. B4ARK, N4LQ.
Okay, N4LQ, WB4ARK. All right, Steve. Well, thanks very much, Dave, for the information, and I will get that going so that we can figure out what we need to do. I wonder. I'm not sure about this regulator. Like I said, it's for an acetylene tank. It goes up to 15 psi. Duncan usually runs it at about 10 and regulates the flow with a valve at the engine. So he's got a beautiful blue flame, and the when he's got it turned up pretty high, otherwise he's got a little bit of yellow in it, which I don't think is too detrimental. He's got a little bit of carbon build up on the burner nozzle, but it goes away after he cranks up the flow. So he starts out pretty low to warm the boiler up and increases it as time goes on. And when he's running it, he out on the track, depending on the situation, he may have it turned up pretty high, and so that's the way it goes. I will do some checking with him, and we'll find out what's going on. I don't, he's told me what the name of the burner is, but he does not make his own. It's too cost prohibitive to make your own burner. So he's going with a commercial burner. So let's see. Well, John, your signal is really quite strong today. You're 60 dB on the R390. And Dave, your signal is very good. I've got my headphones on, and I can tell that that you've got a extremely good signal. So with that, well, let's see, Gary, your signal is quite good also. I think I concur with what Cliff says about the transistors. Typically, you'll have one that might act up and not maybe show a bad show up bad on the transistor tester, but usually that's not the case. They're gonna show up bad. Let's see what else we got here. I think that's about it. So we'll turn it over to Gary, K3OS, WB4ARK.
Everybody, thank you. WB4ARK, K3OS. You guys, thanks for that tip. Yeah, I'm going to go. It's really a funny thing. They just bypass the sideband filters. I got to see whether it's. I haven't delved into it. I thought it was just audio that was moving around. Probably, and I don't know whether there's electrolytics in there or just some small caps. I got to look at it. But again, on the schematic, been a few weeks since I've looked at it. But thanks for that advice. I'm going to bid everybody 73s on this round. I've got my irrigation guy is coming over here to fix a couple of things, and I just got a text from him that he's on his way over. So let me say 73s. We'll get you guys next week, if not before. Cliff, everybody sounding good. Ray, nice to hear you. You're strong as well. Conditions are changing in our favor. WB4NKL and the group K3OS.
K3OS, it's WB4NKL. 73s, Gary. Hope you get the Kenwood straightened out. This stuff can be, how it's laid out, it's difficult to get into a lot of times on some of those rigs. Get it packed in there. Steve, I wonder what kind of power level you were running when you first come back. I could still come, but I wonder if that was just the coming out of the modulator or what, if you've seen any power, but whatever it was, you still had a signal here. I could read you. And let's see, I guess that's about all I got. I'll stick around for one more and send it on around. Go ahead, Lee, K4VWD's WB4NKL.
WB4NKL, K4VWD. Well, thank you very much, Cliff. You're sounding good here. And John, your signal here at my house in Greenville is about 10 over. You're above the S9 level, and it sounds fine. And Steve, you're still sounding good now that you got that loose connection fixed. And I got very little going on here today. I'm doing mostly reading. One of these days, I want to talk about sound. My question has to do with if you got 3 or 4 different instruments like clarinet, trumpet, guitar, piano, and they all hit the same note. Let's say an A. And on that guitar, that string is vibrating at about 4,000 cycles per second, and everybody is right on an A, and you can measure it, and everybody's on the same frequency, but yet it sounds different. The sounding is different, and you can recognize the difference in the instruments. My son, the musician, says it has to do with the shaping of the note. So, in my very lack on physics and sound, I don't see how shaping a note changes the way it sounds. And I don't understand that, and I'm trying to understand it without changing frequencies. So, someday somebody can discuss that with me. And so, Ray, down to you, W4VRO in the group, K4VWD.
K4VWD in the net, W4VRO. Well, that's very interesting, Lee. So, vibrations, numerous vibrations at the same frequency can have different sounds. That's an interesting occurrence, and I can't help you with the answer, but you're at the right place to find it. If not today, another time, bring it up and somebody will be able to explain that. Charlie, you had a lot of your spare time when you had nothing to do taken up with working on that house, and sounds like you still have a ways to go. And now on top of that, a carburetor rebuild. And what else did you say? Doing something else to your truck. But keeping you busy. Interesting projects. Steve, you wanted an audio report. I don't have any instrumentation to give you any kind of technical report, but the audio sounds good. And the D104 is doing a good job with that particular transmitter. It sounds good to me. And maybe somebody can give you a more critical report on that. Cliff commented, Steve, that he could hear you, still copy you when you had the loose connection. I could tell there was a signal in there, but I couldn't tell it was you. So that's interesting. Apparently the connection was not completely disconnected. Buddy, lots of information from Dave to work with. Yeah, that's amazing. Dave, you have a lot of knowledge on a multitude of different subjects, and I'm often amazed. So you're forever learning. And Gary, thanks for the signal report, and 73 to you. I'm also going to sign on this round. Cliff, the D104 is just really strong and sounding good. Now, Lee, your signal faded down substantially. I think it's QSB. Conditions are changing. John, you wanted a signal report. You're S7 to S8 here, 50 miles south of Atlanta. Very strong signal, so your antenna, I think that's a new antenna for you, it's working very well in this direction, so sounding good this morning. Charlie, thanks for calling that. 73 to all, and we'll listen for a few minutes here and then look for you next time. And over to you, John, KZ4B in the group, W4VRO.
Okay, W4VRO in the group. This is KZ4B. Thanks, Ray. I'm going to attempt to comment on Lee's question. If the note at any frequency is a pure sine wave, it's like a carrier that is unmodulated. This gets into Fourier, the Fourier transform, Fourier analysis of a waveform, but basically a clean sine wave is like an unmodulated carrier. But if it's not a clean sine wave, then it's like a modulated carrier, which sounds different from a, if you listen to an unmodulated carrier, you hear nothing. And except if it's a low enough frequency, you can hear the tone. But as from an instrument. But once you superimpose anything other than a sine wave at that frequency, then it's a combination of other frequencies that are basically modulating it, and that's what makes it sound different. And it's, you know, the carrier frequency, which is the musical note frequency, may be the same, but if it's in effect modulated with a distortion that changes the sine wave to have ripples on it or whatever you want to call it, then that actually makes it sound different. And I probably shouldn't have gone there, but the deed is done. So shifting gears, I've had this project hanging over me I need to change out my bladder tank on my water system. And I got my son last week to carry the tank into the garage. My garage is there. It's mega cluttered, and so now it's on me to do the plumbing to change out the old tank and put in the new. And the wife is really on me about that, and so that's my next big project. I hate plumbing, but it's like cutting grass. I can't afford to pay anybody else to do it. So I have that Damocles sword hanging over me till I get that done. And I commented last week that I had used some Pure Lye drain cleaner that solidified in the drain because I used too much and it got too hot. And so last week I had to rip out the drain pipe that was in the sink, the P-trap, because it had, in effect, cement in it. So I did get that done. But again, I met the enemy and it is up. But that project, I survived. So, and due to the drought in this area, I haven't had to cut the grass for the last almost 3 weeks. And the lake is down. I'm on Lake Norman, and it's seen in quite a few years. And a buddy of mine that lives in
Hello, test one. Hello, testing 1 2 1 2 1 2. Test test test. Audio test test test. Audio test test test. Hello, test test test. Hello, test. Test, test, test. 1 2 1 2 1 2.
.80-meter antenna because of the lack of loss in the transmission line. So, W4MEC in the group, KZ4B, over.
Pretty good, John. KZ4B and the old friends, W4MEC. Do we have anybody that would like to join us for the 73 round? Come now. Okay, heard nothing. W4MEC and the old friends. Very good. Let's see. Yes, that was quite the tutorial there, Dave. I appreciate that also. And a lot of dynamics and going to work and getting gas from the tank to where it burns. That's for sure. I wonder, buddy, about, I guess your son's going to the different shows and stuff. He picked a lot of people's brains about how to convert things from coal to propane, so picked up a lot of knowledge. I know they did a couple series on outdoor railroading.
Hello, hello, test 1 2.
Almost like if you could do it, if there was enough room to basically to redesign the whole boiler, so you really didn't have a firebox. You could have burners along the full length of the boiler where all the water was, you know, something like that. But of course, the heat goes down the tube, so I guess it's as opposed to just boiling water like in a pot. But there's quite a bit of science, and like I mentioned there, that bungee burner thing seemed to be popular because of building a manifold and just screwing in as many as you needed. So, anyway, let's see what's on that. What else? My other notes here. Martha, my wife, took a trip to visit a friend of hers yesterday over in not Bryson City, Waynesville area, a little bit past there off of Highway 19, and she said it was crowded. The highways were leafers looking around, and when she went to that particular campground, it was packed out with trailers, and said it wasn't a very nice campground. Well, I mean, it had trees and amenities and all that, but the spaces between campers they're packed. She said they were packed in there by sardines, and if you had a camper that had a slide out on it and you opened it up, you could not walk between because there was no space. So that's how tight they're packed in there. And it was full. It also said they have a lot of people that actually live there and work at the casinos. So they have what they call a park model RV. And it's not something you see pulled around a lot. Usually it kind of has wheels on it, and you take it where you want to take it and just leave it. And several park models there with people living in them. So it was not a really good campground to experience camping, I would say. And and let's see, the truck project. Well, I tell you, it's 85 from 2023 is what, 38 years old. And I found out through a bunch of research and things like that, basically none of the sensors are working, and none of it's got 405,000 miles on it, and the engine is technically on its last legs. And I wouldn't have done this. I would have bought a long block and swapped it out, but I pulled a compression check. I got 150 pounds in all 6 cylinders, give or take a couple pounds. And that's kind of unusual for 405,000 miles. So I said, I'm going to put a couple $100 in here and see what happens. See if I can get another 100,000 out of it before I need it, before they make me buy an electric car. How about that? So, so we'll do the 73 round, and let's see. I know. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. I know Gary left. I know Ray left. So if you know somebody else that left, skip over them. WA4LLR in the group. W4MEC.
All right, W4MEC and the group, WA4LLR. Real good. Well, Charlie, thanks for calling the net. Great job as always. Great signal as always. A couple of comments. Ray, you were talking about a lot of knowledge. It's that old adage of being jack of all trades and master of none, believe me. And, buddy, one recommendation, and it's just a recommendation. I believe you said your son was using an acetylene regulator. I would consider going to a regulator that's designed for propane, because regulator, of course, has an orifice in it as well. And I don't know what kind of orifice the acetylene regulator would have. So there might be, you might be ahead to go to a propane regulator. Just a thought. And Lee, you're talking about the difference in musical notes of the same frequency produced by different instruments. Well, I'm no expert for sure, but I've dabbled in music all my life. And one thing that comes to mind is attack and decay. Pretty much any instrument will have a different attack and decay from a different type of instrument. And then there's also the issue of harmonics from different instruments. So there's a lot of things that go into play. Just some things to think about. Real quickly, our space weather today, sunspot count was 25, solar flux index was 122, and decay was 1.33. So pretty quiet space weather. Few items from this day in history. On this day in 1945, the United Nations was established, and I'm not going to go into my opinion of that. On this day in 2017, Fats Domino passed away. On this day in 2005, Rosa Parks passed away. On this day in 2003, the Concorde took its last flight. On this day, 1992, the Toronto Blue Jays defeated the Atlanta Braves to become the first non-USA team to win the World Series. On this day in 1940, the 40-hour work week went into effect under U.S. Fair Labor Standards. On this day in 1929, a record number of shares at the stock market were sold off in the crash, first day of the panic of crash of 29 on Black Thursday. And on this day in 1861, the first transcontinental telegram was sent by telegraph in the United States, bringing an end to the Pony Express. So, and in 1632, Dutch microscopist Antony Leeuwenhoek became the first to observe bacteria and protozoa. So there you go, N4LQ, WA4LR 73.
Yeah, WA4LLR, N4LQ. I agree with all that. All right, my power's back up. What happened was the coax wasn't tight on the back of the SWR meter, and that was causing a problem. So I really have no way of knowing how much power. I didn't read anything on the meter. It was just a ground, so probably a few milliwatts. Don't know what got out. I've got some more tests to run here. If anybody is around after the net, I'd like to give do some experimenting with another amplifier I got here. On the music, Lee on the music. I don't know how familiar you are with oscilloscopes, but I've got a little signal generator here, a little Chinese generator, and it'll put out, I think, at least 50 different wave shapes, including sine wave, square wave, triangle, trapezoidal, and they're just all different shapes. And if you hook it up to an amplifier, they all sound different. Some sound like flutes, you know. A sine wave's more like a flute, I guess. And square wave kind of reminds me of a bassoon, if you ever heard that, or an oboe or something like that, just like that. You can see the shape. That's the shape that I guess you were talking to your son. That's the shape he was talking about. And that's done electronically, but if you change the instrument's method of blowing air through it or whatever, a string or using a reed. I used to play saxophone. It had a reed mouthpiece that vibrated, and it had a unique sound based on the size and shape of the instrument. I played an alto sax. I always wish I'd played a baritone or maybe a tenor sax. That's my favorite sax. And so anyway, that's pretty much it. Just think of an oscilloscope and different wave shapes. That's about it from over here in Shelby. Over to you, buddy, WB4ARK and 4LQ.
WB4ARK, N4LQ, WB4ARK. Okay, Steve. Well, thanks, Dave, for the information again. And this regulator is more like an acetylene regulator, so we will look into getting possibly a regulator that that will be more along the lines of a propane type regulator, and see how that works. But it's not a significant problem. It hasn't frozen up to the point where it doesn't allow any gas to come through, but during different temperature periods of the day, it does tend to form some frost on the outside. And it seems that when it's colder, it doesn't do that. And I thought possibly it's because the air, the humidity is lower at that point in time. So maybe that has something to do with it, and maybe it doesn't. I'm not exactly positive about that. So I will say thanks, Charlie, for doing the net, and I think, Lee, your question about the different sound of a musical instrument, I think has to do with the type of vibration that the instrument produces during its vibrating period. For instance, a metal instrument will have one type of produce one type of sound, whereas a wooden instrument will produce a different type of sound. And so the way I'm not exactly certain how that works, except it has to do with the tone of the or the timbre or the quality of the sound. And investigations have shown that the quality of the musical tone depends on more or less on the shall we say, the complexity of vibration of the body of the instrument, as opposed to other aspects of creating that sound. So that's basically what I have on it, which is not much, except there is a difference between the obviously between a piano and an organ and a stringed instrument such as a violin or something like that. I think that's about it for me. So we'll turn it over to Cliff. WB4NKL. WB4ARK.
Yeah, WB4ORK, WB4NKL. Yeah, that's some pretty good explanations around why stuff sounds different. But, I go with it's not exactly a sine wave, so you get all kinds of harmonics and different phases, I guess, of the exact same frequency, but different waveforms. John, your 160 meter antenna is doing a good job over here, a good strong signal, and that's about what I'm running. I'm running a 160 meter dipole fed with ladder line to an 18.4 star tuner, so it's a similar setup. It works better. I don't know. I guess I think I've tried it on getting different reports on transmit, but it seems like I know on receive it's better than a regular 180 meter dipole. So that's the biggest reason I run it. It's a lot quieter on receive, and it might just be the location of the antenna. I'll say 73, Steve. I can stick around for a few minutes, but I've got to get going here before too long. I've got sisters picking me up at 11. I've got to do a few things before she shows up, but I'll stick around for a little bit. 73s, thanks for calling it, Charlie. And let's see, go ahead, Lee. K4VWD, it's WB4NKL.
Thank you, Cliff. WB4NKL, K4VWD. Well, first off, buddy, I need to tell you that my son lives down on the coast, down below Charleston, and he saw a hummingbird yesterday. So I thought that, I guess they're all headed that way. I haven't seen any in over a week. And I appreciate all the comments about the sound thing. And I think, from what I'm hearing, you got a carrier with modulation on it, and that's how you can hear me. But the carrier stays the same. So let's take a guitar, for instance. And Charlie, this has to do with the amplifier you worked on for him. That string on the guitar vibrates the same, but you can change the sound by changing the control on the amplifier. Now, it seems to me that the only way you can change sound in your ear is to have some sort of change in frequency or vibration or something. And we talked about the shapes with the oscilloscope and all that, but I don't see how shapes on the oscilloscope gonna change what I hear. I'm not sure I can hear any sound change without having some change in frequency or some added thing. So I think the tone, the vibration, the harmonics, modulation, putting on the carrier, all have to do with why it changes. And to me, that's what's happening. But anyway, it's an interesting subject to us, and like I say, you can have that guitar vibrating at the same frequency, but yeah, you can change the sound by what you do with the amplifier. And to me, that's adding something. So, 7-3, God bless everybody. Thank you, Charlie, for doing the net. So, KZ4B, this is K4VWD.
Did you turn it over to KZ4B? Over?
Yes, go ahead, John.
Okay, very good. Yeah, the talking about the tones, if it's anything other than a sine wave, what you're really hearing, even though the sine wave can be defined as one frequency, if it's not a pure sine wave, it's really a combination of frequencies. And that combination of frequencies sounds different. And I just look at it like that. It looks like you don't see the combination of frequencies, you see a distorted sine wave, but it really is a combination of frequencies. And therefore the ear hears it different. Enough on that. Well, listen, Charlie, thanks for calling the net. Appreciate all the feedback on the antenna. We needed to get that straight. And hope everybody has a great week. So back to you, Charlie. W4MEC in the group, KZ4B clear.
Hey, John, KZ4B and the old friends W4MEC. All right, well, I forgot to come in on the tone stuff. We all know that Bell Labs figured out that when it comes to voice, 300 to 3,000 cycles is where all the power is in the voice. Everything else is frills, and if you've ever heard a woman on single sideband, you realize that 3K cutoff kind of hurts. But that's where all the power is in, let's say, the male voice, and that's why all our comm gear is designed to do that.
But music is a different animal, and to reproduce it perfectly, you need bandwidth. And that's why your basic broadcast, AM broadcast channel is 10K wide, and we're only 3K. But even 10K is not enough. The square wave, the perfect square wave, consists of the fundamental frequency and every single harmonic to infinity. And if it does not contain them to infinity, it starts to get rounded. And even the best square wave, you can look with a good scope, you can see the corners are rounded a little bit. And if you don't have that bandwidth, you can't reproduce a square wave. And a lot of, even though a square wave isn't a common musical instrument note, there are a lot of square corners and and triangles and quick turnarounds and all that when you look at the different notes from the different animals, so instruments. So you got to have the bandwidth to faithfully reproduce the sound through a quality speaker too. That can kill it. So apparently the ear does a pretty good job of interpreting music. And but in order to give your ear a chance, it's takes a little bit more technology there. So, but anyway, so enough of that too. So we'll look for everybody on Thursday morning. Thanks for everybody that checked in, and you'll have a good rest of the day here, and a good week. So 7-3 all, W4MEC, shutting down the old Friends Net. Bye bye.
WB4NKL, N4LQ.
Yeah, N4LQ, it's WB4NKL. That rig sounds good, Steve. Single modulator transistor. That's doing good.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how good it sounds on the monitor here, but let's see. It's kicking up to 120% positive peaks, about 99 on negative. Just about hit 100 there, so I'm on the ragged edge. All right, I got this little solid state amplifier, and I didn't like what I saw a while ago. I'm going to switch over to it. Stand by. Can you copy this, by the way? This is like 2 watts. This is 2 watts, over.
Yeah, you dropped from about a S9 down to S6.
Alright, we'll see what this does. This is the solid state amp, and it's pretty gross. For some reason I've got all negative modulation. Let me tweak up a adjustment right here, if I can get to it. Okay, got the screwdriver in it. And hello, test. 1 2 1 2. Well, let's see here. That still doesn't look right for some reason. Let me make another adjustment. Let's see here. Hello, test. Hello. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. I've got, going through the solid state amp, I've got negative modulation, and if I go through the tube amp, I've got all positive. Must be flipping it somewhere, I guess. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, it's about 68 watts. So I don't know what's going on here. What do you think?
Well, it's sort of showing up as distortion on the signal on the solid state amp. I can hear a little, it sounds just like it's plenty loud enough, but there's a little bit of distortion on your voice.
Let me try this other mode here. Hello. Yeah, this amplifier, this was originally a CB amplifier, I guess, made by Palomar. And, yeah, we don't want distortion. Let me try something else here. Hello. Test. 1 2 1 2. 4 4 4. Yeah. All right, that's a little better right there, I think. Does this sound better?
Yeah, it sounds all right. It's just not quite as good as the other amp, I don't think. It's just a little bit of ragged edge to it.
First amp sounded best.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, I'm on the tube amp now. Good night, man. Look at that, 150% positive modulation going through the AL 1200. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, I'm back on the tubes.
Yeah, I think it sounds a little better, don't you, Charlie?
Oh yeah, that sounds really good. And yeah, no matter what adjustment you made, I really didn't hear that much of an improvement. It nowhere approached what you're using now. I was curious. You said solid state. Are you using a bench supply to run it? Do you have enough amperage to take the voice peaks on it?
Oh yeah. Let's see. This is a 30 amp DC supply, so it should be all right. And that it could be that I'm overdriving the amplifier, the solid state amplifier, because it's made for CB, so you put 4 watts in and get who knows what out. But I'm driving it with probably a little bit too much. I think I can fix that pretty quick. I've got a 6 dB attenuator pad that I can move a solder connection, and I'll have that back in line. It might take care of it. Anyway, I don't want to tie you guys up just for this, but I appreciate the help. Charlie and Cliff, go ahead, Charlie.
Okay, your signal strength on both is right at S9 with minimal QSB, so wasn't a variation there. The other thing I ran into working on an ICOM rig was I got an ICOM rig with the wrong size cable, DC power cord, and had the right connector, but it wasn't set up to draw 20 amps. And I was sitting here trying to troubleshoot that darn thing, and the whole problem was in the cord going to the power supply. So I hope you got adequate there one also. But that's interesting. I have a Palomar also, and it does, I think, 40 to 10 meters or something like that. It might do 80. And it had a pair of tubes in it, plus a driver tube that looked exactly like the finals, but it was half as big. So, and the pin out, everything was different, but it was half size. So, some kind of sweep tube. But anyway, it's kind of unusual to see an amp dedicated to CB that would go into HF bands, but I think that's how they got around the legal issue.
Yeah, I think a lot of them they called amateur amplifiers, and they said they were 10-meter amps and all kinds of stuff to try to get around in the system. 73s, yeah, I need to get out and get some stuff done here before my sister shows up. But I think you're seeing it on the meters what we're hearing, so hopefully you can get it worked out. Now, and it makes you wonder how linear. I guess it's adjustable, but the bias on those transistors makes you wonder if it's biased in the linear range. 73 WB4 NKL, now clear.
Okay. Yeah, I had it in the sideband. It's got 4 switches: power, preamp, of course that's for the receiver, AM and FM, and I had it on CW as sideband, but I switched it down to AM. I didn't see much difference. I'm sure it's changing a bias. And there's no tuned circuits in this thing. It's just a broadband ferrite arrangement coming out of it, so whatever goes in is going to come out stronger. That's a comforting thought, but I'm going to try reducing the power here in a few minutes. See what I can get out of this thing. It's going to be all in one little box. Pretty nice little AM transmitter. So I used to use this thing back in the 90s, this little solid-state amp made by Palomar, TX150, and I put it in the in the car, and I drove it with a QRP CW rig, operated CW. And I figured between that rig and the narrow bandwidth of the ham stick antenna that I didn't really have to worry about harmonics. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. 73 N4LQ.
Okay, Steve. Yeah, I've got a Lafayette, that 10-meter transceiver, single band, and I married up to a Palomar looking their tube version, and it was 11, 10, and 6-meter tube amp. And I had it on the bench, and I put my, I couldn't get anything out of it except on 11 meters, and I put my darn dip meter on it, and the input would show resonance in the 11-meter band, but not on 10 and 6. And it was kind of optimized for 11, and I moved a couple taps and got it optimized for 10, but it never worked on 6. It doesn't put anything out on 6. But as an addition to that little Lafayette, I think it's HE10 or not HE10, something like that, 10-meter rig, it puts enough oomph in that little 10-watt signal to make it pretty usable. So anyway, good luck on figuring that thing out, so getting it working right. But the modulator you're using on the VFO there, digital VFO, I mean, the audio sounds absolutely perfect. It sounds just like you're running a plate modulated tube rig. So N4LQW4 MEC.
Okay, yeah, I'm back on it. Yeah, let's see here. You know, that's a lot higher percentage now on the positive. I've got 96% running 38 watts carrier, AM mode. Does this sound any better?
Yes, that's a marked improvement.
Okay, well, maybe that's all I had to do. Yeah, so that's yeah. Oh, wait a minute, my SWR is all messed up. Hang on.
Back in here and turn down the radio. Heard Steve. Talked to Steve and Cleo and some of the guys and Ned this morning.
Well, Steve was stepping on you there a little bit, Greg, but I copied it. Locomotives from coal to propane and was having flow issues, so we got a real good tutorial on regulators, supply lines, tank pressures, loads, and all that.
I run this propane heater here at Denver, that flame goes out, the heater won't work. And I cleaned the orifice of the pilot light a while back, the pilot flame. And getting that train to wearing off the propane. Okay, I'll pass it on around or something. Steve and Cliff was in here a minute ago, but anyway, I don't want to tie it up. KF4 DRN.
Okay, have I got it?
Testing after the net here. Steve's playing with a rig, so good to hear you this morning. Meet us up Thursday morning at 9 o'clock on this frequency. Yeah, I've got the same thing. I got a propane stove in my den, and except for that propane stove or fireplace, not even a fireplace, it's standalone, and yeah, that you got to keep that thing clean, surface inside clean there. So. It works pretty good, and the only and they flip-flop around, they can actually make enough air to blow the darn flame out. So, so we got to watch for that. So, let me send it back to Steve there. He was messing around with something to see what it sounded like. Infrared QW4 MEC.
Yeah, I'm battling. An antenna tuner decided to fight me here. These auto tuners are nice, but sometimes they get out of control. Anyway, let's see. I'm showing, oh, this is good. 119% positive. Hey, that's looking better. Looking better. It's only 33 watts of power, though, so I can tell I've got a little more work to do on this thing. Let me try adjusting this. Oh boy. Hello test. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, it's pretty easy to overdrive it. Let me turn it back down. That's pretty crazy. Alright. I'm not tie you guys up anymore. I'm gonna go out and check the mail and then come back in here and piddle with this thing. It's been a lot of fun. See you later, and hello to you, Greg. Go ahead, Charlie. N4LQ.
Yeah, you took a big dip there down to, I don't know, S3 or so, and the audio went with it, so you were pretty weak, unreadable. And, I mean, you're readable, but you were pretty weak, so it didn't quite have the punch of like a plate modulated rig going down that low where the audio would still be good, but it would be interesting to see if there's a spot, a drive level spot on that amp that was optimum, you know, and if you had like a variable attenuator and where you could increase the drive until you didn't get a appropriate, is that the right, an equivalent increase in the output, and that's probably the point where you don't want to exceed the drive. And you might get a little more with a little more drive, but that's when the distortion dials in. So, but anyway, it's that last thing there. Well, not this last transmission, but the one before, you sounded pretty good at 38 watts. So anyway, keep playing with it, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. Greg, it was good to talk to you, and I hope you can make it back on Thursday morning, 9 o'clock. And N4LQ and KF4 DRN 73 W4 MEC.
Okay, thanks for the help, and we'll keep at it. Yeah, this is looking a little better here. Back up close to 100%. About 40 watts now. All right, see you guys later. N4LQ. Good night. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Audio test. Test, 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 test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the bias for the driver, I wonder what it's supposed to be. Hello, 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 test, 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 audio test. Let's see, we'll just keep going up here, audio, 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 test, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now this is low power. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In 4 LQ testing. Audio in 4 LQ is clear. Audio test. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Audio test. Audio, 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 audio test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, radio. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, radio. Testing. There's 30 watts. Audio test. 30 times 4. Yeah, it's quite a bit. Quite a bit of power. Way too much. Okay, now we're down to 20. Hello test. That's 100 watts on peaks. Modulation percentage is oh, there we go. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, that looks real good. Hello test. 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2. Hello is N4 LQ testing for modulation. Audio test. Audio test. 1, 2, 1, 2. Audio test. Hello, radio. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Test, 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 test. Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, test, test, test. Hello, test. 1, 2. N4 LQ testing. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Audio test. Yeah. Test, 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 test. 1, 2. 1, 2. Test, test. Audio test. Audio test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2. Audio test. Audio test. One, two.